This episode of Greenhouse Grower to Grower is brought to you by Westbrook Greenhouse Systems. Westbrook is a North American leader for greenhouse structures, heating, curtains, benches, and installation. Their track record of retaining long-term employees means that you can trust them with your next greenhouse project. Whether you need a freestanding, gutter vent, peak vent, open roof, glass, or poly house, Westbrook has a solution for you. You can find them online at westbrooksystems.com, follow them on LinkedIn, or visit their booth at Mance, TPIE, Cultivate, TNLA, or the Canadian Greenhouse Conference. Welcome to Greenhouse Grower to Grower, the podcast where we talk to growers from across the greenhouse industry about market trends, innovation, their biggest challenges and opportunities, and more. I'm Brian Sparks, editor of Greenhouse Grower. Safety in the greenhouse, whether it's safe handling of crop protection materials or preventing slips and falls, is an important but sometimes overlooked concept. During Cultivate 25, a group of growers will come together for a panel discussion on why adopting a safety-first mindset is essential to protecting employees and ensuring smooth, productive operations. In this episode, I talked to two of these growers, Jent of Metrolina Greenhouses and Lyndsey Zinni of Millcreek Gardens, about best practices, lessons they've learned, and more. Here's our conversation. So I want to thank all of you for joining me on the call today. I want to get started first by just talking a little bit about each of your operations, and then how this topic developed as a panel discussion at Cultivate. So maybe just go around the room and kind of just mention who you work for and some of the key things, key responsibilities that you have. Let's start with Katie.
Hi, yes, so I'm Jent with Metrolina Greenhouses in Huntersville, North Carolina. We also have a facility in York, South Carolina. It was founded in 1972 by Tom and Vicki Van Wingerden, and now is run by their children. So our co-CEOs are Art and Abe Van Wingerden. And what I am mainly responsible for is a research manager here at Metrolina, but I help with mostly pesticide safety. So making sure our team members are, horticulture team members are being as safe as possible while using and handling pesticides. That's a really big topic here. We have 125 horticulture team members, so we want to keep them as safe as possible when they go home every day.
Sure. And I know sustainability is a key part of what Metrolina does, and this obviously ties into that mission as well. So
Yes. Yeah, sustainability, when we introduce new pesticides here as well, we're looking at, are they safe for our employees, moving forward in the future? What does that look like for how we're handling pesticides?
okay, awesome. Lyndsey, what about you?
Yeah, so my name's Lyndsey Zinni. I'm the growing operations and nursery supervisor at Millcreek Gardens. Millcreek is a small family-owned wholesale grower in Ostrander, Ohio. We mostly grow herbs, annuals, and perennials. It's been family-owned and has been around since 1978. We're on our 47th year of operations. Compared to Metrolina, we're relatively small. We currently grow on about 20 acres, and in our peak season, we have about 60 employees. 30 of them are through the H2A program. So we
Okay,
also do bilingual safety things here.
nice. Okay. And then Liz?
Hi, I'm Liz Dunbar. I'm the marketing and product manager here at BASF. And at BASF, we're the world's largest chemical company. For the greenhouse and nursery industry, we're a supplier of fungicides, herbicides, insecticides, and biological products. And one core value of BASF is safety. So safety is at the root of everything that we do. And you would think it would make sense working for a large manufacturing company, but it's not just at our manufacturing locations. It's truly throughout every aspect and every team here at BASF. And so excited to bring the topic of safety and how to integrate safety into your culture because it's really, really important for every operation, no matter the size.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point there, Liz. I mean, safety is so important. I also think it maybe can get overlooked sometimes. So I think having a discussion like this at an event like Cultivate is really critical. So let's talk about that. So let's start with how this topic developed, and then kind of how the panel came together as a centerpiece for Cultivate.
So I can start. I am part of the Gen Next committee on through American Hort, working with Lyndsey and Andy, also on the same committee. And we were hanging out at the Unplugged event last year at Cultivate, and we had been talking about a variety of things, but they shared some really interesting and poignant stories around safety and things that had happened around their operations and understanding, safety at the heart of our culture. They were the inspiration behind the idea. So hearing how they approached safety and what they did in those moments where it mattered the most, I thought that would be something really impactful to amplify for through the industry.
Okay. Okay. Lyndsey, I know you said that you were part of that conversation. So how did you kind of tie into that then?
Yeah, so Liz and I were actually on a panel with Andy last Cultivate as well, talking about just like the next generation and how we fit into the industry. And it was after this panel that we were all at Unplugged, and like Liz said, we were just talking about either some things that got brought up during our panel that day, and one of the topics that Andy and I both brought up were just some safety incidents that either had happened or that we were kind of prepared for at our operations, how we handled those incidents, and for me, one of the biggest takeaways from our conversation then too was what we then changed in order to not have those happen again, and how we could have maybe done things a little differently. So Liz was there and she was like, this would be a great topic at Cultivate. Let me sit on this. Let me put something together. And here we are.
Well, I like that approach too because, I mean, sometimes, the best ideas come, I mean, sitting in a room, during a presentation to Cultivate is great. Having a conversation on the trade show floor is great. Some of the best ideas just come from those social gatherings, whether you're at a reception, whether you're just getting a cup of coffee in the morning and you run into somebody, you strike up a short conversation. Next thing you know, it sparks a great idea. And then, that leads to this whole process of let's have a longer conversation at next year's event. So you're already thinking a year ahead, which is really interesting. Um, I want to get the perspectives both of Lyndsey and Katie. So, when it comes to safety in the greenhouse and some of the measures that you try and follow, how do you get buy-in from your team to make this a priority?
Yeah, so I feel like buy-in, it's probably one of the hardest parts. You have people that maybe were part of something that happened and they want to see change, or just there's a better way we could go about doing something where our employees are more safe in the workplace. But I think it's reiterating how important it is for people to be safe to prevent accidents, because you don't want to see someone go home or be hurt or have to not be at work for a while because of a recovery. I think buy-in is one of the hardest things, and I think it's something we think when we have a great idea, everyone's going to buy into it because you're like, this is a great idea. But then when it's change is always the hardest part. Getting through the change phase for people. For everyone. We're not, we want to be creatures of habit, but how can we say, like, because we did this? And I think one of the best ways we can show how the change is good is see the results. So maybe the people that are more hesitant, you say, hey, we implemented this change and we reduced accidents by 10% because of that within this category. And so I think showing people data on how it can reduce and how it does reduce has helped on our team to have people buy into that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so I agree with a lot of what Katie's saying, especially about how difficult it can be to have different people in your organization buy into the safety mindset culture. Um, really, here at Millcreek, we do a lot of repetition. We try and get as many of our full-time staff on board with what we're doing. And then from there, we just make sure that we're once again all on the same page
Yeah.
and reminding our different seasonal employees of why it's important. There was an incident that happened at Mill Creek a couple of years ago, and it was a pretty serious incident. And a lot of our current H2A employees were there for that incident. So having it still be relevant and kind of fresh in mind, I think has really helped, especially when we're implementing some new safety procedures. But really, it's just repetition. It's monthly reminders. We have a safety committee here at Millcreek. We have a safety coordinator who goes to the different OSHA trainings and stays up on the different topics, and it's just repetition.
Okay. Okay.
Absolutely.
Speaking of that, okay. With that repetition in mind, so what are the most important things that each of you have learned as you've gone through this process of safety implementation across the team?
Safety is definitely a group effort. If there's one person who's not following along, they're the ones that is probably going to end up getting hurt. So how important it is to have all of your team leaders on the same page and have
Okay.
that trickle down effect. Because it's not just a one person responsibility, it's the responsibility of all of us.
Mm,
Yeah, I think that kind of plays into what Lyndsey was saying too about repetition. You may think you've covered something, but maybe you have a new team member. So repetition as much as possible, like for pesticide safety, for example, when we all get together as a group, if there's something we need to address, we make sure it happens in the large group as well as meeting with, smaller groups on a weekly basis. But just repeating as much as possible so people hear it. The more you hear it, the more you're likely to adapt to something and be aware that that's a new thing that's happening. So we just try to repeat it as much as possible.
okay.
And I
What
think
what
it
what I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, and I think it's important too to always, as like one of the leaders of a department or a team, to keep in mind is that these procedures are here for a reason.
Yeah.
Um, so sometimes people might give you pushback. You might be having an issue trying to get somebody to follow along with the safety measures, but no matter how they're acting, you need to remember like these parameters are here for a reason, and it's your responsibility to make sure that your employees are safe at the end of the day.
Mm. When it comes to an operation like Metrolina, which is, multiple facilities, multiple locations, how do you kind of communicate that in enforcement? Enforcement is maybe not the right word, but that prioritization of safety across multiple facilities, multiple locations, so that you can continue to get buy-in, when you're not necessarily there on site all the time.
Right. So one thing that's been great is we have a safety director here at Metrolina he's located in Huntersville, and then we also have a safety manager located in our York facility.
Okay.
And so they're the kind of the people that are in charge of making sure things are getting addressed and happening on a company-wide scale, because there could be specific things for each location that are a little different, and then we have overarching policies for the entire company. But they've done a great job implementing. They do, like Lyndsey was saying, monthly safety meetings to review all if we have any incidents for that previous month, and then getting employee feedback on things that maybe we need to improve upon as well, and then how we can implement change or make our teams cognizant of safety measures for new things that have come up.
Sure. Well, I know, as you were saying, Lindsay, you don't want something to happen, obviously, but when something does happen, it shows you just how significant of a concern this would be. So, here's as you said, here's why we have these systems in place. Here's why they have to be followed so we can avoid something like this.
Yeah, it also reveals any gaps that you might have that you didn't realize you had in the moment either. Something that you really wish in the moment you had and you struggled with, and it just makes you stronger at the end of the day.
Hmm. Liz, I want to get your perspective here. As you work with some of your grower customers, how do you talk about this, and and what kind of communication and messaging do you have for the growers that you work with?
So for us, what's most interesting to me coming into BASF relatively mid-career, so maybe some established habits already had, and really seeing how safety is talked about and exercised. And I mean, we're empowered around the office to where if you see somebody walking down the stairs not holding a handrail, that you can politely call them out on it. Like, hey, you might want to think about holding the handrail, like just to make sure that they're not falling. And so you see these interactions throughout our organization, and looking externally. What's really interesting is how much the safety mindset that's been kind of reinforced to us on a corporate, work level, transcends into everyday life. Like every aspect of my life now, I kind of look through with that safety mindset. And my husband's probably less than enthused about that when the comes out at the house, or we're hanging Christmas decorations or something like that. But working with growers and getting to visit customers as much as I do, it's always good to it adds this layer of awareness that I don't know that I would have had without that foundation.
As we mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, so this will all be part of a panel discussion taking place on Saturday at Cultivate. So Saturday, July 12th. For those who are looking at the Cultivate schedule and have kind of circled this as something to attend, um, why should they be coming to this panel? And what are some of the key takeaways that each of you are kind of hoping to provide for attendees who are there?
Personally, I think people should attend this panel because it's going to have really good representation from different sized companies throughout our industry. Metrolina's huge, and the facility that Andy works at is probably medium sized, and then Millcreek Gardens is relatively small. So I think it's going to be very relatable for different growers in our industry, especially since they could fall into one of those three categories. And they can see and learn from our discussion and how the different sized operations handle the different policies, where the overlap is, what one might do differently from the other, and should really be able to get some good ideas. And hopefully, if they have questions, you can be able to help them with that too.
Okay. Okay. Katie?
Yeah, I think kind of in a similar vein, just if you're someone who's maybe looking to revamp or kind of increase their safety awareness around their company, or just see how different companies are approaching safety. I think we'll have a lot of similar things between the three of us, but I think as well we'll have differences in how we handle some of the safety measures as we scale up as well. Because it can be difficult when you're scaling to figure out what's the best approach and how to communicate that to your employees. But I think that is across the board difficult, but I think we'll be able to provide unique experiences and opportunities for improvement across the board.
Okay. And then Liz, from your perspective.
From my perspective, I think creating a dialogue around what went wrong and really setting that foundation, and it's a vulnerable place to sit, right? I mean, you're in charge of these operations, you're in charge of people's health and well-being and livelihood, and to recognize that things go wrong, but then to be able to impact really meaningful change for the betterment of your teams. I think creating that dialogue out in the open like this, in a forum like this, will be impactful because not everybody wants to showcase some time when something failed or a process failed, and nothing will change if you don't start talking about things like that. So if we can inspire some of that dialogue and scale that out to the industry, I think it's only for the betterment of it.
Well, and I think sometimes that's the best way to learn it. It's great to hear about a success story, but you can learn just as much by what went wrong. Here's what we could have done differently. Here's how we, and more so, here's how we overcame the challenge.
Yeah.
And I think another key point that Lyndsey, you and Katie both made was, and I'm drawn to panel discussions at Cultivate, not just because of the dialogue that takes place, but also because, especially in a case like this, you've got a mix of different operations represented. So, it could be very easy to have, three very large operations or three very small operations. They're kind of talking about a lot of the same things, but the fact that you've got, small, medium, and large size relatively, different skills there, certainly, but similar concerns, and a lot of idea sharing as to how you can approach some of these problems. I think is really interesting.
And I think our involvement with the Gen Next committee and being a little bit more mid or younger in career compared, and having the responsibility of impacting these changes and hearing it from other people who are a similar demographic, and it might seem to a newer person in the industry really overwhelming, the impact change. And I think it'll be good to hear from this perspective, especially, again, just understanding where we all are in our careers.
Sure. Okay. I kind of want to wind things down by just taking a step back from just this panel. Um, y- Cultivate is such a big event. There's always so many things happening, from the trade show to multiple educational sessions going on at the same time to some of the other social functions. Lyndsey and Katie, from your perspective, when you go to an event like Cultivate, again, other than speaking on the panel, what are some of the things that you're looking for? Some of the things that you're trying to accomplish when you go?
I'm looking for new ideas, meeting new people, getting different perspectives on different it could be anything there. You never know what you're going to find when you go to Cultivate or an event similar like this. You just walk by a booth and you go, "Wow, what is that?" And everybody's so willing to talk about what they're doing and how they're approaching different things. And then the classes offer a unique perspectives, and panels offer, discussions. I really like when like companies like BASF will host a panel and say, hey, let's talk about what's coming next in the industry for pesticides. And it's just a really good way to kind of hear what's coming next.
Sure. What about you, Lyndsey?
Yeah, so similar to like what Katie's saying, you never know what you're gonna find out at Cultivate. For anybody who's never been to Cultivate before, it is incredible. Like you walk in thinking it's going to be big, and then you actually get to the trade show floor, and it will blow your mind and how big it is with all the vendors, and they've got potting machines set up in the middle for demonstrations. So that's really incredible. From my position, I'm always really interested in the new products that they're coming out with. Specifically, I'm more grower based. So looking at the new varieties that are coming to market is really fun, and talking to a bunch of different vendors. Also looking at like chemicals and different pesticides that could be really beneficial to our operation. But I also really enjoy, outside of the trade show, the different classes and the different networking events that you get to participate in.
Mhm.
You never know who you're going to meet, and you might just think that you're this small one person, and then before you know it, you're at an unplugged event and you're talking to, you know, the CEO of this big company, because he's just there to network with people too. So you'll never know what you expect, and it's just a really, really great event for everyone to be at.
Yeah, well, and to your point about, not knowing who you're going to talk to, I just remember a couple of years ago, we host an evening of excellence event where we present a bunch of our awards. And it was a couple of years ago, I saw two of our head grower of the year finalists were just engaging in a conversation during the social time prior to the reception starting. And I just took a quick picture. I thought it was interesting. 2 years later, I found out that they had, through the conversation, set up a whole partnership that they were going to be working on moving forward. So, and they had never met each other prior to that. So, nothing better than those types of conversations. So again, for those listening to this, this is part of the Saturday program at Cultivate. I think it takes place Saturday afternoon. So definitely something that you're going to want to check out. So I want to thank all of you for being on the call today. Look forward to either meeting or reconnecting in some cases with all of you at the show. Hope it's a good one for everybody, and best of luck on the panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. You can learn more at greenhousegrower.com. Please subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, and please leave us a rating, as it helps other podcast listeners find the show.